Welcome back to For Our Edification. I'm Eddie Francis, and I am pleased to be joined by somebody who is a friend. He is a brother. Ansel, do you realize that as of next year, we will have known each other 30 years?
Yes, indeed. When I had hair, you had hair, and we were both a little slimmer, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. You had the super smooth thing going with the hair,
Quick back.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And I'm gonna tell folks what I texted to you was I don't know why I never thought about having you on the podcast before, because in all seriousness, brother, you are such a strong voice. You have a great story. Your passion for the people you work with and the way you serve people is awesome. I mean, just on a personal level, man. Um, the stuff that you've done for me, whether you've done it directly or indirectly, it's always meant a lot to me. So, brother, I love you, and it's great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
And I love you too. And just so the listeners know, Eddie is like a big brother to me. So, I follow in his footsteps. So anything you say I'm great, I see you as greater, and I follow you. So thank you, brother.
Oh man, you got it. So we talked about in the intro. I talked about the fact that you have dedicated so much of your life and your work to ministry, to spirituality, to faith. So you know, how did first of all, how did you even get into this path, and what drew you to the way that you actually do the work that you do? I guess is a weird way to ask the question, but
Yeah, no.
what constantly draws you into it?
Amen. Well, first of all, it goes back to you said 30 years ago we connected, and that was at the radio station, and I
Yeah.
was an intern doing my thing, and then we became brothers in the same fraternity, and just different things that led into that lifestyle. So about my junior year in undergrad, uh, two of my mentors, Father Michael Jacques, pastor at St. Peter Claver
Mm-hmm.
Church, and who passed unfortunately, and also who passed Sister Eva Regina Martin, who ran the Sisters of the Holy Family Order of Black Nuns here in New Orleans, asked me to chaperone a lock-in at St. Peter Claver. Well, it was a citywide lock-in, but they wanted me to help chaperone the St. Peter Claver boys. They didn't have enough male chaperones, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'm there, and I had no sleep, but I had probably the best time of my life in a long time. And so
Mm-hmm.
next thing I know is I'm trying to find rides from uptown to downtown so I could be a youth group on Wednesday night. And it just built over time. And then Mike said, you can get paid for this. You could be a youth minister. I said, I did not know that. And so next thing I knew, I changed my major from mass communications to sociology, and then eventually went into the master's program at Loyola and Xavier. And that's all she wrote. And the next thing I was the youth minister at St. Peter Claver. And, having those young people around me, giving back to them and the community like the community gave to me, just meant a lot. I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
you only know what you know. And so just being exposed to that, and then also using that opportunity to expose the young people from the neighborhood. And it grew. You grew, we had people from all over the city and suburbs
Mm-hmm.
coming to, you group on Wednesday night. And, I would bring them to Loyola. I would bring them to Xavier events. I would bring them to stuff outside so they could see a world outside of their own. Trips, it was the biggest headache. I would come back stressed or whatever because everybody wanted to act bad and wanted to go run off or whatever. But I would take them out of the city, just so they could see something else and, help develop their dreams and their goals to be otherworldly. And now, I guess a testament to that is many of them now are in ministry doing the same type of work that I was doing.
Mm. Yeah, is so just so the listeners know, it is not uncommon. First of all, it's hard to walk 2 feet with Ansel sometimes. You go places with this dude and it's just like, hey, Mr. Ansel. So, you know, and all these kids who are now adults. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like some of these folks are like 30 some, 40 some years old, maybe. And
They have
so
their own kids, making me feel
yeah,
old.
and they got their own kids and that stuff. So it's so funny when Ansel's like, "Yeah, them's are my children. Them's my children too. Them's are my children." So,
Oh,
um,
well, I don't know. They'll come to me and I don't recognize them because now they got beards or
oh
hair or,
yeah,
they're grown and, so yeah, it's just different.
yeah. So I got to ask you this.
Mhm.
Usually, when people are drawn to doing this sort of thing, they see some of themselves
Mhm.
in the people that they're working with. Do you see some of yourself in
Oh
some
yeah,
of the people you've worked with over time?
oh yeah. And lately, unfortunately, the reality of New Orleans being number one for mass incarceration and
Yeah.
the prison pipeline being what it is, especially since Hurricane Katrina, I've seen a lot of young people that have mental health issues or are in need of
Mm.
mentorship or different things. And that's something I craved,
Hmm.
growing up.
Mm.
New Orleans being the city that it is, whether I was living here or Texas, or other parts of this, country, wherever it was. I always looked out for, I need guidance. You're
Hmm.
growing up in this world. If all you're being raised by is, as a latchkey kid, BET or MTV, you're thinking that's what real life is. But then you walk out in the streets, it's a totally different thing. And then even when you go into college, Loyola was a eye-opening experience for me, and it was the first place I
Hmm.
felt safe and settled. Let me just put it like that.
Interesting.
Stability in
Yeah.
regards to, a dorm, housing, food on a regular basis.
Hmm.
So for me, I see a lot of um, instability, especially with our
Hmm.
young people that have come through the door. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and that's the ones that I feel like, let me do my best, wherever it is. Whether it was at Peter Claver, whether it was at the Archdiocese, whether it was at Loyola Xavier, campus ministry, prison ministry, whatever it is. How can I create a safe space in this moment so this person walks away feeling like, okay, that's someone that cares about me. Let me make sure that my decisions don't make them disappointed in me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of, what's the word, temptation out there in this world, especially in
Hmm.
this city, where people have made the wrong decisions because they're running with the wrong crew. But hopefully, we can create a network and environment where people can say, look, let me think to make a different decision because that's someone that actually cares about me. So that's what I've
Mm.
tried to do because that's what's kept me out of trouble.
I find it interesting that you say that at some point you craved mental health, during your upbringing. So,
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit. What was it that you really, really wanted to address that you found the need to, or you found an opportunity to address in the kids that you've helped out?
I think for me, Eddie, and we talked about this, in my
Hmm.
time with you as my big brother growing up and just expressing certain things, you created that safe space. When I was trying to figure out why I was at Loyola and did I belong there, kind of thing,
Mm.
was growing up, I felt like I did not belong anywhere. Moving from
Mm.
here to
Hmm.
there, being, almost treated in certain spaces, whether I was not good enough for church folk, not, wild enough for the hood folk, and in my even my circle, they were out there wilding, and I was the good moral person of the clique, the nerd that they picked on, kind of thing. But I was still connected. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
all of them are dead and gone for the real various reasons. And so for me, when I look at the mental health piece, the sense of where is my safe space,
Hmm.
and I think that's what people crave. Where do I belong? Where do I fit in? Where is my space where I can authentically be me? Not put on airs, not be stressed about what these people are thinking or if they're going to talk about me or hate on me afterwards, because I grew up around that. And
Hmm.
so for me, creating that type of environment wherever I'm at is important to me.
Mm. You're listening to For Our Edification. I'm Eddie Francis, and we're talking to my boy, my brother, Ansel Augustine, and we are talking about the power of faith and the power of that faith developing you so that you can develop others. And with that being said, what do you do to keep yourself mentally, emotionally on top? Because I mean, dealing with any kind of ministry,
Mhm.
dealing with any purpose driven work, man, you have to be on all the time. That's the way I felt working in higher education. That is very much purpose driven work, and I felt like I had to be on all the time. What keeps you going?
Well, if I can be honest, church folk can sometimes be the worst folk. Um,
Yeah.
Judgments, criticisms.
Yeah.
We preach. Everybody's welcome, but you got to look and act like this kind of thing. And there were
Hmm.
many times that I felt that my young people were judged or hated on because they came in their authentic form. Whether it was to youth group or whenever, or bring them anywhere. And so for
Hmm.
me, sometimes I get the backlash of it. I have a doctorate, but yet I receive all kind of backlash. Like I'm still not welcome in certain places because I haven't fit into the mold of what that structure wants me to
Yeah.
be. Yet, with the Emmy nomination or the book awards and all these things that are there, I don't think I'm better than anybody, but I know that certain people aren't better than me, if that makes sense. So I
Hmm.
belong
Hmm.
wherever, and this is a faith piece. If God brings me to a space, I belong there. And it
Mm.
took me a while to understand that because of, like I said, the mental health stuff I dealt with growing up, that I didn't belong anywhere. And so I try to create that type of confidence, not arrogance, but confidence in the young people
Hmm.
that are around me. Look, if God is bringing you somewhere, there's a reason you are there. So don't be afraid to be there. So for me, how do I take care of myself? Sometimes take a break from the church folk and focus on the message of church itself. And then for me, and you know this, I love getting in the gym and lifting weights and relieving my stress in that way.
Hmm.
Because sometimes people be in there, and it's funny, the joke in the gym, they call me preach or rev. They think I'm an ordained
Hmm.
minister, which I'm not. I'm just a community advocate, youth worker type thing. I'm not a bishop or anything like that, or deacon or anything. So they'll be like, Rev, man, what's going on? You strong today? I said, church stress. And I'll just leave it at that, and they'll just start laughing, and we'll just go on with our workout and stuff like that. But it's real. You got to take it out in those ways so you don't take it out in other ways. And also, for me, and those of y'all that are in New Orleans or the Gulf Coast area, y'all know about the black masking, Mardi Gras Indians. That's a culture I'm a part of. So just being a part of that culture, especially during carnival time, is crunch time. We got, as of today, this recording, we got 1 week until Mardi Gras Day until we hit the
1 week
dough.
exactly. Yeah.
So, so it's crunch time. So sewing and drumming and doing the stuff that our elders and ancestors have done for generations is also important to me as a way of relieving stress and, as you say, edifying myself to continue the journey that I need to do. So
Mm.
making sure I make myself a priority as I do with everybody else, which I haven't done because you
Hmm.
coming into ministry, you think you want to save the world and change the world when the reality is you get beat up for changing their bulletin. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So you got to come in with the naivety falls off, and you see the reality, the underbelly of the beast, and you want to
Hmm.
take care of yourself. So for any young people aspiring to do community work or just any work in general, not about being selfish, but making yourself a priority so that you can do the work that
Hmm.
you're trying to do as well is important. And it took me a long time to realize that. And in fact, I'm still learning that lesson in some points.
I have to tell you, man, my dad was the most giving person.
Amen.
I mean,
I love your
will give you the shirt off his back. You remember him. And he was the one person who told me, he was like, "Boy, you got to be selfish
Mhm,
sometimes." And it sounded so weird at the time. Of course, I understand it now,
mhm,
but that is the thing that is so. Again, that's the thing that's so interesting about purpose driven work and mission driven work is trying to figure out when is that time to be selfish.
mhm,
When do you take that time to yourself and you say, okay, let me decompress. In my case, from all these students, all these
mhm.
professors, all these administrators. When do I decompress from them? And here's the part that was really interesting for me, and not feel guilty about it, because
Amen.
people will make you feel as
Oh my
if you were
God.
committing the worst sin in the world if you walk away for even an hour to go take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing is, like I was talking about, church people think, like, I got to remind, I'm not Jesus. No, and he took rest too,
Yeah,
um,
exactly. I was about to say he took rest.
but even like last week, like I said, we're in the midst of getting ready for Mardi Gras. But last week, this is just external ministry stuff, not my regular job stuff. But not my mentor, my former supervisor from the Archdiocese of Washington, who became the Bishop of Homa Thibodeau less than a year ago, died of a
Hmm.
liver issue. So I
Hmm.
rode out to Homa Wednesday for his wake because I couldn't go to his funeral on Thursday because I was doing the opening prayer for the mayor's ecumenical prayer breakfast, right?
Hmm.
So I get back in town Wednesday evening. I have this text on my phone, and there's a picture of a letter, and I'm zooming in trying to read it. Come to find out, it's a suicide note from a student that was being bullied at his school by
Oh
not
wow.
only the students but the teachers. And so the committee and the
Wow.
parents wanted to talk, and mind you, I just driven in, so I'm on this thing, and they wanted to meet Thursday with the school and asked if I could come. I said, y'all, I can't come. I got to do this other thing. I trust y'all to handle it. But I was on that call falling asleep, and it came to the point after an hour and a half of being on this call. I'm like, look, y'all, I got to get off this thing. I'm zoning out. I'm not good. Here's my
Yeah.
thoughts. Follow up. And so I think what I'm learning, Eddie, and you showed me this over the years, told me about this, because of all the stuff I was getting involved in at Loyola during my undergrad. You said, Ansel, it's okay to say no. You know, um, and so for me, there's a way to be involved, and also, do certain things without actually being, um, immediately present,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
I've trained certain people, young people or whatever, or even being a community resource. Hey, you need to call such and such, and I'll text that person, look out for a call from such. This is what's happening, because we can't be the be all end all. I'm not trying to die from doing the good work, although
Right.
it's a noble death, but at the end of the day, I'd like to live a little longer, see a couple more Mardi Gras and stuff like that.
Yeah, we definitely want to see you some more Mardi Gras. And so, there was something that you mentioned in talking about youth, um, and talking about the fact that sometimes their authenticity is not accepted, even
Mhm.
in the church sometimes.
Mhm.
And I know that one of the things that's become much more important to you is diversity, equity, inclusion. Um, why is that? What is it about DEI that has become so much more important to you as you've been on your journey?
I think it's always been important, but I just never had the terminology for it until recently, the
Mm,
DEI terminology, whether it was at Loyola, which is a predominantly white institution at the
hmm.
time, holding sit-ins for racial issues that went on campus, whether it was being called the N-word by a white sorority during an event that we were stepping at, our fraternity, we're
Oh, I
D9.
remember that. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to graduate. That was 2 weeks before graduation, or even my sophomore year when the white fraternity from Tulane, which is across the street, was passing out racist flyers on Martin Luther King Day. And
Hmm.
a bunch of us went to the fraternity house like idiots. This was before social media, so nobody was there to record anything. So I don't know what we were going to do when we went to the house, but we went there, and the press conference was held afterwards or whatever. But raising awareness of social disparities and racial issues, in those spaces, and that's flowed into my work, whether it was coordinator of Black Youth and Young Adult Ministries for the Archdiocese of New Orleans, trying to
Hmm.
level the playing field for our youth ministers from the Black Catholic churches so they can get a foot in the door for their young people. The work I did at St. John's University as one of the
Hmm.
campus ministers there, or even coming back here running the Office of Black Catholic Ministries for the Archdiocese of New Orleans. It's always been that. And for me, coming from a spiritual aspect, if from a Christian perspective specifically, if we are all truly made in the image and likeness of God, then we all truly need the same opportunities as everybody else. And to me, there's a faith issue and a justice issue is why that's important to me.
Mm. You're listening to For Our Edification. I'm Eddie Francis, and we're talking to Dr. Ansel Augustine, my good brother. And so, one of the things, so I'm going to let the audience in on a really funny story about you, Ansel.
Okay.
So,
Uh-oh.
when I had no idea when I met Ansel that he was from New Orleans, no earthly idea, because Ansel had come to New Orleans to Loyola, and I was a student at Loyola. So he comes to Loyola from Texas.
Mhm.
So he has all this Dallas Cowboys crap on, right? So he comes, he comes, and in the process of him becoming one of my frat brothers, I was just like, "Yo, man, you're gonna have to lose that blue and white, okay? I don't care about I hate the Cowboys first of all. Second of all, it's blue and white. You got to get rid of this stuff." And so, but the thing that's been so funny to watch, because of the way I met you and where you were coming from, is you have these people, they come from a city, and then you have these people who celebrate the cities that they come from, and you definitely celebrate being originally from New Orleans. And it's always a part of you. I noticed that.
Yeah.
So how does that celebration of being from New Orleans, how does that feed into who you are?
Right. Well, let me be clear. So, not being a Cowboys fan, but an Emmett Smith fan. All right.
Okay,
That was
that's
an
fine.
Emmett
It was
Smith.
still blue and white though. That's
Yeah,
my point.
sure, I
No, I'm
know, right?
joking.
But it
All
was
right.
still, let me be clear.
Emmett
And a
is all right.
Deion
Emmett is
Sanders
all
fan.
right. I
Emmett,
get that.
Emmett,
Emmett is all right.
Emmett and Dion. That's what I wore. It was, so let me be clear. That's why I loved those two players. But anyway, um, yeah, the crap I got coming back home with that craziness was funny. But I think for me, like I said, I've lived spaces and places, other places and spaces, but New Orleans is a space I've grown and have spent most of my life, and it's home. And I think for me, what we have been through, and what I've experienced here, whether it's the growth, the culture, whatever, but I think for me, my turning point, Eddie, of really repping home was Hurricane Katrina when I realized everything could be
Yeah.
lost, and then coming back, living in Peter Claver Church, Father Mike asked me to stay in the church and gut it out during the day. Um, this was still before people were allowed to move home, and
Yeah.
rebuilding, and stuff like that for the contractor to come in. That sense of, I hate to use the word resiliency because you get tired of being resilient, and I'm tired now. Even the what's they call it, racial fatigue. Always talking about racism and
Yeah.
always doing the race stuff is tiring as well. But we look at what our ancestors went through, and so when you look at the history of Congo Square, when you
Hmm.
look at the history of Homer Plessy, people like AP Turo, Leah Chase, who was our church member and like a maternal figure to me,
Hmm.
what they sacrificed. Who am I to do any less? And that's what the spirit of New Orleans that carries with me, knowing I stand on
Hmm.
the shoulders of these folks. And who am I to do any less? So even now, here we are, 2024. Uh, Katrina, August will be 19 years since
Yeah.
Katrina, right? And now, but yet we are having all these spouts of violence from these youth and young adults that grew up, either they were affected by Katrina or grew up in post New Orleans Katrina. And the first thing that was
Hmm.
cut out the budget, remember, was mental health.
Your
And
mental
so,
health.
and I
Yeah.
talked about this as a youth minister. I like, what are we going to, why are they cutting this? This is our families, tragedies that are coming
Hmm.
in. You group went from 60 young people on Wednesday nights to over 95, in that small building, but yet we were trying to deal with whatever they needed while I was homeless, and that doesn't mean I'm some saint or anything like that, but it was just, these are the realities that were never really addressed. And so we're, you
Hmm.
know, harvesting the fruit of those seeds that were planted, from those times that are there as well. So for me as a youth minister, uh, I put on for my city wherever I go, speaking nationally, the books that I write, whatever it is, because I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for the experience that I had here. And
Yeah.
like I said, the elders, the ancestors are important to me. But I also, and God rest this space, it was my favorite place in the city, St. Peter Claver Elementary School. Um,
Hmm.
I wanted to show the young people, if Mr. Ansel can do it, you could do it too. I was
Yeah.
tutoring there, volunteering there, whatever it is. And so now I do that in other ways throughout the city. But I think that's what's important to me. And that's why I carry it. The older folks and the young people. That's what holds me together.
I I learned to love New Orleans a lot more after living in DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, for 6.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, it was a great experience. I met some way cool people in DFW. I mean, some of the most important people in my career and my life are in DFW. There's one in particular I can think of right now. But the thing about it is that, and I heard this was actually in a marketing campaign, that a marketing campaign planning process that I was involved in, where someone from outside of New Orleans said, New Orleans has this way of celebrating the human condition and the human spirit. um and that's what I'm hearing in your answer. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
just all this celebration of humanity, but then also the deep history of the city, where we are very, very cognizant
Mm-hmm.
of what it is that we need to do to continue legacies, and what we need to do to correct legacies, and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. Living in a place like Dallas is just, it's too brand spanking new sometimes. Like,
It's business, right?
it's nice and shiny, but it's just like, it doesn't
Yeah.
quite have the soul, and that grit, those crooked streets and pothole streets and dips and all that stuff. We hate it,
The
but
former river.
it's crazy. It's crazy how it makes us who we are, though. Having to go through all of that stuff.
Right. Like what? We just had a flood a couple of days ago with the heavy rain because the pumps weren't working, and they're
Because
saying it's because of the stuff they put in the catch basins to protect the bees from going in, but that caused the flooding that caused Mardi Gras parades to be moved. Is all kind of stuff. But we didn't want to be anywhere
it's
else,
just
right?
circular. But yeah, and that's funny. It's like we wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I was actually, so quick sports detour. I was actually telling friends of mine who were from Detroit. I was like, man, I'm rooting for the Lions because Detroit. I was like, I feel y'all getting closer, and I want y'all to have that same celebration we had because
Me
New
too,
Orleans
bro.
and Detroit are so much alike in some ways.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I'm rooting for y'all. I'm rooting for y'all. I want the Lions to win the Super Bowl so bad.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, I think that was the same thing. It's almost the city that care forgot. You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you can see some of this thing, and I see it. I saw it when I lived in D.C. when I would go to
Yeah.
Baltimore because some of the youth ministry friends I had
Mm-hmm.
were over there, and you see some of the connection and disparities, but also the unique culture that are in those spaces and places. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what we take for granted. And I think for us, especially post Katrina, whether it's because of gentrification or people not coming back because they found other opportunities elsewhere, you just see I guess, the culture of the city changing. And even
Mm-hmm.
us as culture bearers, we talk about this how we feel that our cultures used to be a mystique thing. You didn't see Indians everywhere, you didn't see baby dolls everywhere, but now you see them on beer cans or on posters on this, that, and other, doing parties and
Mm-hmm.
stuff because they need to make money to afford the cost of living that's here. And plus, out of towners think it's entertainment, not realizing this is a sacred
Mm-hmm.
culture. So it's that
Mm-hmm.
catch 22 that we're seeing happening with the city.
Mm. All right, I'm going to make you very uncomfortable right now.
Okay.
So, um, you have spoken all over the country. You have spoken to, I mean, by this point, you've spoken to millions of youth. And so it's got to be in the millions. It's got to be right. So you
I
spent well
stopped
over
counting.
20. Yeah, I mean, well, I'm sure you did. You spent well over what 25 years speaking to
Mhm.
youth.
25 years.
Um,
Yeah, today,
yeah,
this
so
year
you
marks my 25th anniversary of full time ministry.
So there you go. So
Yeah.
25th anniversary of full time ministry. Um, what is it about? And I know that again, I'm sure you've had the experience of folks coming to you and say, "Yeah, you spoke in Indiana," and da da da. Da. You're sitting there like, "Oh, cool. Well, it was great to see you, man."
Yeah.
So with all of that, and with all of the great things that you've done, all the great words that you have spoken, all the spirits that you have helped lift over over 25 years, what is it that you have been able to sit back and say, Ansel, you're pretty cool, you did some
Mm.
really cool stuff? What is it that people have told you, or what is it that you have realized about yourself that has helped you celebrate you, Dr.
Mm.
Ansel Augustine?
And you know what? I think that's the chase that you have with the mental health stuff from growing up. Keep trying to prove to
Yeah.
yourself that you're good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I think one of my favorite ministries, Eddie, over the years, yeah, I've spoken, like I said, the Colts football stadium at that conference, 25,000 people with the
Yeah,
step
Lucas
and
Oil.
all
Yeah.
these things, and, teaching people about, black spirituality at these white conferences, or affirming our black people when they're at these conferences, or doing whatever, that's powerful. But I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, my greatest ministry over these past few years has been the work in our prison system, whether it's to the young people or
Mm-hmm.
the adults. And when I said, when you say, Ansel, you're cool, I guess, is the emails or the handwritten letters I get from the prisoners in there that want to form a
Mm.
bond. It's almost like they're affirming me, hey man, we miss you, when you coming back, or
Oh
and you got to
man.
pay to send these emails. JPay, it's just how the prison system works. So I'm like, all right, I want to make sure my response counts because I got to pay for this to be sent back to this brother or
Yeah.
sister. And so for me, it just means a lot that whether they came to retreat because they were forced to come, or they came because they wanted to just get out their cell and get the unique food that's going to be served that day, but
Mm-hmm.
yet they got something. There was a connection that was made. And so for me, even when I was at probably one of my lowest points, when my engagement was broken up and I was living in New York those last 3 months, before I could
Mm-hmm.
move home, the prisoners, not knowing what was going on, they put their money together and they sent me this crystal cross with a letter from all of them, not knowing what was going on, right?
Wow.
And it was just that kind of stuff that I said, all right, in the midst of it, and I said this to someone today, it's not about you, but it's about what God does through you. And for me to impact them, and whenever I go to the prison, I tell them that story to remind them that you're a blessing as well, and you can be used
Mm.
even in these confined walls. So that's the message I tell everybody: no matter where you are, no matter what status of life you're in, you can be used to make the world a better place.
Mm. Mm. Okay. We'll come back to that in just a second. But All
All
right,
right.
and I got to put some more Ansel trivia out there. Okay, so this is more Ansel trivia. This has to be one of the coolest Ansel moments. All right.
Uh-oh.
So casual conversation with Ansel. Hey man, what's going on? Oh, I'm all right, brother. And we're going back and forth. Yeah. Well, I just came from praying with Cash Money before the concert, and I'm like, wait, you were what?
Yeah.
So here's a man who he he is so good at nourishing souls that before going on stage, this
To
dude
back
says a
that thing
prayer
up,
to back that thing up.
we lifted the
It's
Lord up.
at the blang blang. It's Ansel. Sang a prayer with the Cash Money Players.
Yep, sure enough. Yeah, and and that goes back,
How does one get that gig? Wait a minute.
bro. It's crazy, man. Where and I'm trying to think of the event. Oh, it was Lil Louisiana Fest, the first one.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
and Manny Fresh and all them knew us from Q93, the
Yeah.
being
Yep.
out and about. And remember, I would be the one, like I said, that would show up to work with the Bible, just cause. And when I wasn't doing anything, either I was studying, and if I didn't feel like studying, I was reading the Bible. Not that I was holier
Mhm.
than anybody, but it was just what it was. And so me and Manny developed this friendship over the years. And so whenever he would see me anywhere, he's like, "Hey, preach, come pray with me." And so room full
Mm.
of people. They might be high, they might be faith filled, they might be whatever. But all of a sudden, in that moment, because Manny asked me to pray, they took it as something that was serious, right? And so I just
Wow.
took that opportunity to evangelize. I think the coolest thing was his 50th birthday party at the Fillmore. It was a
Mhm.
surprise birthday party. I went there early with my partner, helped set up and different things like that. I'm in the back by the bar, people giving speeches and stuff like that. Everybody taller than we're not the tallest brothers. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm looking through the cracks, trying to see what's going on. People giving speeches and stuff, and they were ready for him to cut the cake. He said, "No, I want preacher to come pray for me." I thought he was talking about his wife, who's a minister, or his wife, or his wife's pastor. No, he said, "We're preacher." And then Brandon B. Mike Odoms, he was standing next to me, because he could see everything. He looked down at me like, "Preacher, I think he's talking to you, right?" And I was like, "You lying." So I went around the corner, and sure enough, he said, "Yeah, come pray." And so in front of all these people during this moment, whether they were Instagramming, radio, TV, music execs, TV people, whoever, we just had this moment of prayer for the people that were there. And then, sure enough, in true ministry fashion, after the prayer was done, I go sit on the couch and mind my business. It turned into a therapy counseling session to people that wanted to ask questions about faith. And it just happens, bro. That's how it was when we did the ice cold entertainment parties. I'm at the front door talking to people about faith and stuff like that. However it is, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
force it on anybody. But I think at the end of the day, because I don't come across that way, they're open to having those conversations. So, it was
So
weird.
that is so, and the thing that was so funny. This was a funny moment. So just back in November, Ansel and I went to the 35th anniversary celebration of the chapter where we initiated Rho Epsilon at Loyola. And just casually, he's telling the brothers in the chapter, he's like, "Oh yeah, Manny and Juvie and all them used to come hang out at Loyola," and they were just like, "What?" And they
Right.
were so geeked out about it.
Those parties we used to have, it was the city would come to the alpha parties or ice cold entertainment parties at
Yep,
Tulane, Kendall Cram, or Loyola St. Charles Room, or
yep.
at the Hyatt. Is it the Hyatt? Oh, well, it was one of the places on Canal, but yeah, or the Municipal Auditorium.
Oh,
Yeah, and it was funny.
Hilton, the Hilton. No, y'all did parties at the Hilton or the Marriott
No,
or
no, no, it
Sheraton.
wasn't that far down. It was right there at the foot of Canal.
Oh, that's the
I forget
Hilton.
what Radisson. Radisson. It was the
Oh, the
Radisson.
Radisson Inn. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And so, and the municipal auditorium, it was funny. Whenever you walk in, you can find Baby because all he had to do was smile and the lights would hit his feet. But it was fun, man. It was just fun. It was just, a fun time. We didn't know what we were doing. We were college students just trying to make money to pay our dues, for chapter dues.
Yeah.
And we ended up building this empire at that time period.
So, oh wait, no, okay, wait. So let's be clear. All right, did you ever pray with anybody at Freaknik? You ever went to Freaknik? I just want to know if you're gonna be in the documentary.
No, I will not be in the documentary. And if it is a person that looks like me that is younger with hair and slimmer, that's my twin. That's Pansel.
So last question. All right. Let's say, Ansel, that you are a skywriter and
Mhm.
you can write one message for the entire nation to see.
Mhm.
What would that message be?
Skyrider message. People look up and they see this sign in the heavens. It would probably be chase that dream. And if it's for
Mm.
New Orleans people, it'll probably be chase that dream.
You heard me?
Yeah.
I'll chase that dream, brother.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, listen, I will tell you this. Because you need to hear this, and this needs to be said publicly to you, that you are, number one, you're the most giving person. You are someone who you help a lot of people hold their lives together, man. And I think what is the coolest thing about you is that no matter, even if you're not there physically with somebody, you're always there because you play such an important role in so many people's lives. So celebrate that about yourself. Celebrate the fact that you are a giver, and that you are a damn good friend. And so it is a pleasure to have you as a friend. Definitely an honor to have you as a brother. And thank you for coming on the podcast, man. I might get more than 20 downloads out of this episode.
Amen. And look, I'm glad the one story you didn't tell was your wedding night. So thank you. And God
I
bless
forgot about that one. No,
you.
we'll
Don't
keep
forget it.
that one under wraps. Yeah, we'll keep that one under wraps.
That's on the subscription plan for the podcast. All right. God bless you, bro, and I love you.
Thank you, brother. Love you.